You are live with the App Show. Mike Agerbo here with John Biehler. We've got an interesting show coming up here. We're going to have a good friend on the program. His name is Victor Lucas. He has been in the video game industry for a few decades now here in Canada. He's had some popular TV shows about the video game industry and digital entertainment. You might know him from Electric Playground. He's got a very popular YouTube channel as well. We're going to be talking about the future of app stores. Right now, we've got Apple with their App Store. We've got Google Play with their Google app, Android store. But there's not a lot of competition. In the Apple world, there's zero. On the Google side, there are other Android app stores, but the vast majority of people use the Google Play Store. So there's been a bit of chatter now from developers, some saying that Apple and Google are taking too much commission on every app that they sell, and currently at 30%. A large video game company called Epic Games is taking Apple to court and saying that they don't want to pay that anymore. They want to negotiate a new deal. So we're going to be talking with Victor on what that means and why it's important that we know about it as consumers and app users. Let's talk about some of the app news right now, John. One story that we have been following, obviously because of the pandemic, is the COVID alert app for our smartphones. That doesn't work in most places.
It kind of works.
Yes, explain.
Well, it's constantly logging any interactions with other people that have the app installed. What it's not doing is actually telling you, if you're outside of Ontario right now, that you've interacted with somebody that has an infection, because that facility is not turned on yet in BC and in most provinces other than Ontario, which is currently the only one.
So you can download the app, but it's useless unless you're in Ontario.
Right. They do say, though, it's good to have it so that it's there and it's running and it's logging. So when they do flip the switch, which we'll talk about in a second, you will have at least 2 weeks worth of logging data so that they can actually go back and see if you did come into contact with anybody that was infected.
So right now, Ontario is the main province that is using this. It's been announced that it looks like Alberta will be switching from their app, their AB Trace Together app, to the COVID Alert app. And also, it looks like Newfoundland and Labrador will be supporting it in September as well. Still, no word from BC, Manitoba, and Quebec. I guess in BC, we're going to follow the Uber route. And so sometime around 2030, if I'm projecting correctly, we will get the COVID Alert app.
ICBC has to approve it first.
ICBC has to approve the COVID Alert. It would just be so nice if everyone kind of got together on things like this. I mean, it's one standard app. It's going to work across Canada. We're not going anywhere except in Canada. Yep. So that's a good thing. So you don't have to have a separate app for every province that you're going to. But, I wish they would, say, are we going to support it or not? And if they're not, why?
Yeah. Well, why is this so hard? It seems like all of the health ministers and all of the people responsible for this stuff are all in agreement across Canada about how this should be playing out. Why the delay on each thing? My only thought would be that the delay is because they don't have the infrastructure set up to actually dole out those infectious codes, if you will. And that's something that they need to sort of figure out how to do that, how to deploy that across all of the different hospitals and all the other places where you would.
It's true. I mean, I'm simplifying it. It's not just like turning a switch on.
No,
there's other things that have to happen, but we should all be on the same page. One country, one app.
Yeah, especially at least in BC right now with our, everything's spiking right now. And it's like, this would be a good time for us to know how to trace all that stuff.
Well, I got to be honest. And again, I'm not a doctor or an infectious disease expert, but it just seems to me that this isn't going to end anytime soon. And I don't think there's going to be a miraculous vaccine in the coming months, as much as some people, Donald Trump and other politicians, would lead you to believe. These things have to be tested. So I think we're still a year or two away from, if they can come up with a a reliable vaccine for that. Contact tracing, to me, seems like one of the weapons we have against this. And so the more tools, effective tools, of course, that we have, that we can isolate people that have the virus and warn others, that would be important.
But it's interesting though, because in Ontario, where this does work, there was 2.2 million downloads.
Yes.
There's more than 2.2 million people in Ontario.
Yeah.
And this contact tracing system only actually flagged 90 infections. That's like a half hour in Ontario. You know? So what that sort of illustrates is that even though, you know, there's a fair amount of people that have downloaded it, it's still not actually tracking everything. And it's been out for a month, and it's been pounded on by everybody, us included, that, you know, you get this app, it's not going to hurt. And yet it's
anonymous. It's not tracking you.
No, there's no GPS. There's nothing. It's fine.
We're going to have to take a break. Don't forget to hit our website, getconnectedmedia.com. Got a new contest going. If you were sad that you missed out on last month's contest where we're giving away a really nice smartphone, we've got a new one. We've got a new Samsung A51 smartphone for this month. And again, if you want a chance to enter, go to getconnectedmedia.com, hit the newsletter tab, and all the instructions are there. It's super simple. Just subscribe, and you'll be entered into this contest and all the ones going forward this year. And that's thousands of dollars in prizes. And the odds are good. When we come back from the break, are there new app stores in our future? Stay tuned. You are back with the App Show. Mike Agerbo here with John Biehler. Going to talk about a battle now happening in the app world. You might have heard of this. Apple, with their App Store, up against Epic Games. They make a very, very popular video game right now. One of the most popular in the world, I would say, called Fortnite. Everyone's playing this. You're playing it.
Yep.
I'm playing it a little. The challenge is that to get the game, you either have to download it off of like a Windows PC, for example, or through the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store.
Or a console.
Yeah. So if you are a developer and you have your app, game, whatever, on the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, those guys get a 30% cut commission. So it's kind of difficult for you to sell the same game on those stores at a higher price to justify that 30% commission. So a lot of developers are feeling that, you know, hey, that's too much of a cut. And Epic Games here has, I guess, drawn a line in the sand, basically saying they're not going to pay that. They made an update to their game in...
Well, we should preface the fact that Epic Games makes a lot of money off of this particular game, Fortnite, because...
And it's interesting. It's free.
It's a free game, but you're basically able to buy cosmetic upgrades that don't do anything for your gameplay other than make you look cool. You can buy like a stormtrooper outfit or something else, and they make a lot of money off that, like hundreds of millions of dollars a month off that. So 30% of hundreds of millions of dollars is a lot of money.
Yes. So this is a battle ongoing. Apple and Google, for that matter, have basically kicked Epic and their Fortnite game out of their respective app stores. Epic is now suing Apple, saying it's an unfair monopoly. Again, we're not legal experts here, but
definitely not.
We just wanted to talk about the ramifications and why this is an important story to follow, even if you're not a gaming person. To help us dive a little further in, we've got a great guest, a friend of mine. I don't even know how long now, 20, 30 years. His name is Victor Lucas. He is like the video game god of Canada. He had the electric...
not just Canada.
Yeah, sorry, the world.
Yeah.
The world.
No.
Popular TV shows over the years, the Electric Playground series. There's so many things that he's done. Thanks for joining us, Victor.
I've never been introduced as a video game god. I feel like I should be a playable character in Fortnite when you introduce me like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, your character.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, your character's $20.
Yeah. Very interesting developments with this Epic versus Apple, and it's also Epic versus Google as well. I think they're not really trying to challenge the status quo so much as to kind of shine a spotlight on what these monopolies mean, because the Google the Google Play Store and the iOS App Store, let's face it, they're monopolies. They control everything. It's been mostly to the benefit of consumers because prices have dropped as their share of things has dropped. But they do have full control of everything. And I think what Epic is kind of positioning itself to be, although they are a giant out there. It's not a David versus Goliath. It's like a smaller Goliath versus, a couple of massive Goliaths. But I think what Epic is positioning itself to be is a champion for other app makers and a lot of partners that use their Unreal Engine technology to kind of challenge the way that the fee structure plays out. They also, I think, have an end game of wanting to put the Epic Game Store, which is something that they launched recently, which is also a challenger to another company that's been perceived as a monopoly with Steam and the way that they've sold PC games forever. Epic has an alternative with the Epic Game Store, and I think what they're trying to do is shine a spotlight on Android and iOS and say, look, you guys are like PC platforms. And there should be, competition with the way that apps and games and things are sold out there, and to sort of allow there to be flexibility in the marketplace, and to have some competition on pricing and competition on the earnings that app manufacturers are able to make. And I think that's really what they're trying to do. Apple has made billions and billions of dollars by controlling the way that apps are served up this way. And this, opening of its platform like that would be a massive challenge to them on many, many levels. But Epic is starting to gain a little bit of ground. They've got support from Spotify, and I'm sure lots of other developers out there that are trying to challenge all this. And one of the things that everybody is citing is that Amazon, who is a massive giant, is able to, sell movies without giving Apple a 30% cut of those movies, or rent them through their Amazon Prime app. And so Apple has this ability to pick and choose who it's going to bend the rules for, So, it makes sense from Apple's perspective to say, well, look, everybody has to follow these rules. But it also makes sense on Epic's side to kind of think, well, if these platforms have become so ubiquitous, they've almost supplanted the idea of us being connected to computers, for big chunks of our day. And on, whether you're on Mac or you're on a PC, you've got lots of options for purchasing things. Why shouldn't there be similar kinds of options on these portable computers that we all walk around with? It's a very interesting development, and it was very cheekily handled by Epic, creating that Fortnite, replication of the 1984 commercial. But it's certainly sparked a real conversation.
No question. I think this has so many different potential implications from independent gamers or developers that create independent games that are usually really small shops and a couple of people, and that 30% would be huge for them to sort of keep making those games. But then on the other hand, I'm also thinking about, it's Apple's house. They built the house. They've given them the tools for free to develop on. And, when you think about some of those things, it's like, well, I have to play by their rules, and it's their house. That's the deal. But I also kind of think it's a little heavy-handed by Apple to say, well, you can't do these sort of side things. If I choose to buy something on iOS within Fortnite, Apple gets 30%. If I choose to buy something on the Xbox side version of Fortnite, I should still have access to the same content on my Fortnite that's on my iPhone.
Just a question here. If you've got an account on Xbox playing Fortnite, your character there, it doesn't go over to the iOS side or the Google side, does it, if you're playing it there as well?
I think there is some cross-platform, but I believe maybe some of the, honestly, I don't know because I haven't tested it out on every single device, but Epic has been a big champion for cross-platform play for sure. And maybe this is part of the discussion as well. Maybe there are limitations, built into the purchases and stuff. But yeah, I mean, there is this idea that if you purchase something anywhere, like we're quickly moving into this world where digital purchases of things should be transportable. Not only should they be transportable, but the license to that digital thing that you purchase should also have inherent value, so that if you are done with it, you can then sell it somewhere else, which opens up a whole other can of worms.
That'll never happen.
Well, I wouldn't be so sure about that because of EU legislation. And I mean, there's a lot of people, like these guys were all called in front of Congress recently, Apple and Google. There is a lot of digital monopoly.
Have you seen those things when they get called in front of Congress? The Congress people have no freaking idea.
No, they don't. I know.
You know what I mean?
I know.
My iPhone.
Yeah. But things will change as this becomes the norm, right? Like, what are we actually spending our money on? I mean, honestly, we're all going to go to subscription on everything, and also when we go to subscription, and I think Epic can see the writing on the wall, this idea of free to play and purchasing little bits and pieces, that's going to kind of drift away, because it's going to be more about time invested in things than it's going to be about nickel and diming people to wear cool hats and stuff. You'll be able to earn all of that stuff based on your subscription to something. But we're still probably a decade away from that. And then by that point, the idea of ownership becomes a moot thing. But right now, it is incredibly important. And it's not just about the 30%. I think it's about portability of the things that you do purchase, and being a more open and fair platform for all of the content creators out there. And certainly there's a lot of governments and a lot of legal organizations around the world that are actively looking into this to try to set some policy around it, because Steve Jobs called it. He knew he was going to change the world with the iPhone, and he sure as hell did. It's a very different planet now, because look at how our jobs have changed. We were television producers, and now we make content that streams and is recorded digitally, and we're doing this interview over Zoom. Like, everything has shifted because of our digital footprints and our digital connections to things. It's not an analog world anymore, and Apple has been a great leader in that field to make that transformation. But also, do we want them to be, a $1 trillion monopoly? Do we want them to have all of that control?
We're talking with Victor Lucas, Canada's, I guess the world's video gaming guru. We want to explore this a little more, so we're going to take a break. When we come back, more with Victor Lucas, and we're going to look at how much of the market Apple does own, and does it make sense for them to give up some of this power? You're listening to the App Show here on the Chorus Radio Network. Back after this. Here we go. Okay. You were back with the App Show. Mike and John here. We're talking about the epic battle between Apple and Epic.
I see what you did there.
Did you? Pretty good, eh? And Google. Epic is a large video game development company, publishing company. They've got their game Fortnite. They are battling Apple right now in court over their allegation that Apple, and Google for that matter, have a monopoly on their app stores. And, for the most part on the Apple side, that is the case, because you can't get apps anywhere else. If you're really super nerdy, there are little hacks and things you can do, but normal people don't do that. Apple, it's interesting compared to Google. They don't have as much market share. Google Android has the vast majority of market share around the world. In North America, Apple with their iPhone and their iOS, they have 50% market share. But if you look at the numbers, even though Google Android has bigger market share, the Apple App Store by far outpaces the Android side as far as sales and downloads. So Epic here now with their video game saying they don't want to pay Apple's 30% cut anymore. They want to do a new deal. They want their own Epic store inside of the Apple Store, App Store, whatever that is. And they're going to court to try to see if they can change it. Personally, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. Victor, if I look at the numbers, you remember when the U.S. government tried to break up Microsoft back in the day?
Yeah.
Microsoft had 90% of the operating system market in the world.
Yes.
It's not the same here. You've got Apple. Yes, they do have their own house to control it, but there's Google. They have more market share in the mobile space. And on the Google front, there are multiple app stores. You don't have to play on the Google Play Store. You can have your apps in other stores.
Right. And that may be what happens with iOS ultimately. Who knows what's going to happen? But I think what is interesting about this is the opportunity to work through it a little bit and to gauge the appetite for change and to enlist advice and wisdom and observation from the people that are active business partners of Apple on the iOS side, on the App Store. And I think that's what Epic is trying to do here. I think that it's not so much about sort of making or forcing Apple to change. It's about saying there is some dissatisfaction and there is a little bit of Apple getting to decide how and when they will bend the rules. And maybe those rules, which worked 10 years ago when the Apple ecosystem had a much smaller footprint, and some of the biggest challenges that app developers and content creators of any kind and every scale face today have to do with discoverability. Maybe the idea of giving up a 30% share of your downloads to Apple seemed a little more fair 10 or 15 years ago, or 10 years ago, I guess, than it does now, when you're just sort of tossed into this great vast ocean of apps and, people are trying to figure out how to ring the bell to get some noise. And, it's constantly compared to the 50% markup or the 60% markup that retail used to take on PC software and games. And certainly this is, monetarily wise or percentile wise, this is a better deal for people that create video games or PC apps or things like that, or apps for your phone. But what's different is the retail experience. When people used to be able to walk into a store, they were dealing with a one-to-one connection and human beings that were guiding them and curating and steering. And certainly some of those were paid, and there were corporations that worked to get higher prominence when people would walk into stores. And that probably exists on both of the major app stores right now, but there is a lot less of that personal connection, and so you are kind of left to your own devices. And I think a lot of app creators feel disappointed by the way that a lot of e-commerce and a lot of these e-stores and specifically the iOS store kind of handles that relationship. So they take less of a percentile, but they do less work to help these creators get discovered and get found than I think a lot of retail partners would do, because there was less competition and it would serve everybody for the staff of these different stores to be really experienced and really knowledgeable. And certainly they were fed scripts and told to sell specific things. But you guys know what I'm saying. Like, it was a different experience when you would walk into an EB Games and be guided to some hot new thing that you might not have ever heard of than it is to go on the Apple's game store and say, is there a Star Wars game? I'm just going to download that. It's very very confusing for consumers. So Apple could be doing more to help guide people. I mean, they have this incredible service right now, the Apple Arcade. I don't know if you guys subscribe to that. They've got tons and tons of games there, but it's really hard to get information about them, and we don't really know. We get the blast of when a new game comes out, but we don't know the theory behind the game or the drive to create that game or why this game has value in sort of modern marketplace. And so consequently, I know about Apple Arcade, but I know very little about those specific releases. And I think it's incumbent on companies like Apple or Google, if they have these kind of retail relationships with people, to do more to help spread the word that way.
But I would argue, Victor, if they were to be broken up, the App Store to be broken up, and there could be multiple app stores, it's going to be 10 times worse, because there's still going to be all those apps and all those games out there. And now they're not going to be in one central place. They're going to maybe be in a couple of those stores, or maybe in this store, but not that store. And it's going to be even more difficult to be seen through all the noise.
You just described the Android marketplace.
Totally.
Fragmentation.
Yeah. It's crazy. And that's a big challenge with the Android marketplace on the Google side.
Yeah.
And it exists on PCs as well, and it exists on Mac to some degree as well. And people have to this is what we're grappling with, right? Like, this is what the world is kind of trying to understand as we enter into digital license rights and finding the best deal and knowing where to shop. And we saw this happen with movie retailers, which have been, I think, I can't remember which one it was, which shut down. And then they said, well, we're going to partner with Google, and all the rights that you had to these movies, you can now watch on the Google store. But that kind of thing is happening as well, right? You just don't know where to sink your dollars into. And ultimately, I think this is part of the road. Maybe what happens out of this is there's a reevaluation on percentile. Maybe there's a different kind of a scale that is given to smaller developers and larger developers. Maybe there is a little bit more freedom or even a little bit more rigidity on the rules. Maybe Apple can't do things like say, no, Epic, you can't sell any Fortnite currency within the game without giving us a cut. But neither can you, Amazon. You can't rent movies on the Amazon Prime store without giving us a cut. We have to, level the playing field for everybody. Honestly, I don't know what the answer is. The three of us spend all of our days looking through all of this information and doing our best to, tell the world about the things that excite us and interest us. But we're in this space all the time. And I think, you also probably hear from a lot of content creators and app manufacturers, and I hear from a lot of game developers that it's just hard to get people to notice your stuff. And I think we probably jointly also hear from a lot of people that don't follow things as religiously as we do, that are like, what do I get? What do I stream? What do I watch? What do I, and will it still work if I get the new phone and if I upgrade the operating system? There is a lot of beauty and incredible work and value in the way that this stuff gets served up, but there's also, along with that, a tremendous amount of new confusion. And I think through this lawsuit, some of that stuff is going to get worked through.
Do you think they're going to be able to solve this in the courts, or do you think it's going to actually come down to some kind of regulation or something like the antitrust stuff, like we mentioned earlier?
I can tell you what's going to happen. They're going to lose because it's not.
Epic's going to lose.
They're going to lose.
Yeah. Well,
I'll put $100 on that right now.
Well, I don't know if it's as clear cut as that, because the battle in the press has been about Fortnite, but the real underlying kind of scare is that Apple is going to drop support for Epic's Unreal Engine, which has multiple uses across multiple apps. Many, many, many video games are made with the Epic Unreal Engine, but now it's starting to be employed in the production workspace. So there's movies and TV shows that are using it. And famously, the Mandalorian's using the Epic Unreal Engine to create all of its background imagery on screens where actors are being shot. Yeah, it's incredible. And it's also being used in...
I think your basement was done in Unreal, wasn't it?
Yeah. This is all Unreal Engine. Yeah, you'll see this in season 2 of Mandalorian back here. And it's also being used in car commercials. It's being used for many, many different things. I'm sure there are app manufacturers right now working on AR furniture, things where you can, put on some glasses and decide where you're going to put your new couch, probably using Epic Unreal Engine because it's so robust. A lot of people don't know that Epic has been working in production for a long time, and a lot of car commercials that we watch on television or on streamed up before YouTube videos, those aren't even cars. Those cars that we see on the road are pre-production CGI models that are rendered in real time and manipulated to make them look so sexy, but they're basically video game, up the high-res video game graphics that we're watching.
You can't tell.
No.
You can't tell. And that's how powerful that application is, and how important it is to thousands of content publishers out there, content creators out there.
But so that almost got shut down in this whole thing.
Yeah, if Apple says, you know what, nothing that you touch is allowed to be on our platforms, that's going to impact thousands of companies. And so if legally people get behind that as a concept, and Apple has the right to do that, then we're going to see Epic back right down, because it's going to affect all of its partners and players and stuff out there. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that the concerns that are raised have some validity, and they could only be raised by a company the size of Epic, and it's not perfect. I mean, the fact that the EU has been looking into this for a long time and has been wondering whether or not to break up monopolies and change businesses. I mean, all you got to look at is Apple's insistence on using their own proprietary charge cable instead of just going to USB-C like everybody else. That's not cool, Like just make the Earth better and go with one standard charge cable. Make it better for planet Earth.
You heard it here from Victor Lucas. Make the Earth better. Go with the one cable.
Yes,
one cable through them all.
Right.
But it's an interesting point. I don't think they'll win on the Unreal Engine part. Obviously there's so many of these developers and companies that are using that. That would be a detrimental impact to all of those businesses. And in that part, from the legal aspect, and again, I'm not a legal scholar or anything. I think Apple would lose on that component. Like they wouldn't be able to shut that part down. Yeah.
Monopolies are tricky. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of benefit from it, and certainly in Canada, we have lots of monopolies that are sort of government run that give us a social security that we can kind of depend on. But they can be tricky, and they can be manipulated, and they can go things can go awry, and things can look unfair. And I think Apple's an extraordinary company, by the way. Like I'm all in on the iPhones, and I cut on a Mac every day, and I work in this environment all the time. And I've been a happy Macintosh Apple customer for a long time, but I don't think change is bad. That's kind of what the message was in their commercial. It was cheeky, but I think in a different time, in a different world, Epic would have an ally in Steve Jobs for challenging the norms. And Apple, let's face it, they do stand to turn into the thing they were warning us about if
Back
they
in
don't listen.
1984.
Yeah. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right?
Well, there's no question that Apple, from my experience over the years, I've been in the tech industry since the beginning of time, you as well, Victor. I mean, they basically created this multi-billion-dollar industry. I mean, yes, there was software development before for Macs and Windows, but by really, locking down this app store and making it easy for developers to monetize their work without it getting pirated, I mean, they've built this house that has basically benefited, millions of people, not only from the consumer side, but the development side, and pumped up this. I mean, it's $1 trillion industry over the years. So
it's incredible.
It really is. Victor, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I mean, there's so much meat on this, and we'll probably have you on again to dissect this a little bit more in the future as we get more news. Where can people find out more about you? I know that when we breathe in the air, you were there, but from an analog and digital standpoint, where can people find you?
I'm posting most of my content on YouTube these days, and hustling and doing all kinds of other stuff behind the scenes. But I post a ton of content on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/EPNTV, and our website is EPN.tv.
That was Victor Lucas, a man who has really driven the digital entertainment and video gaming side here in Canada and around the world with his fantastic programming, his YouTube channel, his TV shows over the years, and delight to have on the show, and a good friend of mine. When we come back from the break, a little more app talk. Stay tuned. You're back with the App Show. Mike and John here. Don't forget to hit the website, GetConnectedMedia.com. Not only to enter the contest, because we're giving away a fantastic Samsung Galaxy A51 smartphone, but we have so much great content happening up there too. So not only our audio and video podcasts, and we've got the App Show, and of course the Get Connected program, but we're constantly doing first looks of new tech gadgets, smart home technology, what smartphones to buy, tips and tricks when it comes to technology, what you should be concerned about from a security standpoint. I mean, there's so much going on, from blogs to videos to, like I said, the podcasts. It's all up there. And it's great if you come and visit, because it helps us make even more content. And again, we're giving away that Samsung Galaxy A51 smartphone. If you want a chance to win that little puppy, all you have to do is hit the website, GetConnectedMedia.com, go to the newsletter tab and subscribe, and you are automatically entered. Want to thank all the folks that helped put the program together, including John Biehler here, my co-host and producer, and of course, Christina and the rest of the team back at the ranch.
Don't forget, if you really enjoy this podcast on YouTube, to like and subscribe, and maybe even hit that little bell, and you'll get notified when we post a new one.
Please, please, oh please.